Okay, good.
Welcome to our podcast today. Ask Aaron and Ask EJ. This is Eric Johnson, the brand.
It's Coach Aaron Thick Pin the Source. EJ,
Hey, hey,
what
good
are we
morning.
doing this morning? What's
Uh,
happening?
we're gonna deep dive into a few subjects today, Aaron, that seem to be at the forefront of a lot of different topics I've heard out there in the world of sports and baseball. And so I'm gonna deep dive into our first subject today. Okay, and the first subject we're going to talk about is college recruiting. We're going to talk about this 5-for-5 impact that the NCAA put on with sports now, especially in baseball. And basically, recruiting's changed again. It seems like every quarter, Aaron, the recruiting is changing, whether it's okay, the portal athlete now. By the way, the next legislation that's going to come out is that you get one portal transfer coming up in your 4 years. That'll be the next thing the NCAA will go through. But I want to talk about this 5-for-5 thing because it's going to affect the recruiting classes. One thing that has happened now is that if you're going into college, okay, and this is your first year this year, you have 5 years to complete 5 years. You got 5 year seniors now.
Hmm.
So you can play 5 years in college baseball. How's that going to affect recruiting? It's gonna really be difficult. And the 2027 grade class is going to be affected by it a lot because it's like, okay, I've got these seniors who are completing their senior year, okay, in 2027 in college, and they're going, hey, I got another year I can play college baseball. Oh, guess what? My roster is at 35. College coach goes, I've got these other seniors, another five seniors who helped us really win. I'm going to keep them instead of recruiting an incoming freshman in the 2027 grade class. So you're going to see this trickle down effect even greater, I feel. Now, you still got portal athletes, you still got these seniors, what's going to happen? That's the first subject I want to tackle today, Aaron. This is an interesting characteristic and an interesting time for all those 2027s that are trying to play college baseball.
So yeah, that's the question is now there's kind of a slowdown or a bottleneck for all these 2027s. I guess what's the strategy for them? Because, I know here in California, yeah, everyone tries to go the JC route as kind of that safety
Right.
valve, but aren't those programs kind of impacted? And then also, even if you do get a roster spot at the JC, well, are you kind of just burning a year, you know?
Yeah, and
Because
right.
you kind of have this year in limbo, and it's like, well, what do you do? Do you just maybe go to a school or, go to school and work on your grades and then train on your own? Or do you, actually try and spend the time to make that team? Or, it's kind of wonky there. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know I guess it's all individual specific, but yeah, you're kind of taking away a little bit a year of these 2027 kids, with this change.
So, Aaron, the ultimate question is, it goes back to this. You've got JCs that are impact. They're bringing 40 to 60 kids on campus.
Yeah.
They kind of say, who are our best guys? They get lost in the shuffle. They're completely like, if they don't do that, they're done. You've got this bottleneck at the top, D1, and then down to D2. So the real question is this, and this is an interesting subject. I've always said this about college recruiting. Get the best grades you always could get the first day you step on campus in high school. Do go to the utmost extreme to get the best grades because it's come down to this now. If you have good grades, you're a very good player. You go D3 baseball and get your academics paid for and have a good college experience. You could get your academics paid for. You could go play D3 baseball, which is, by the way, a high quality of baseball now. So now it's like, okay, if I'm here in a 2027 grade class, I have good grades. Oh. my test score works out. Oh, I can get this much money academically. This is a good school where I can get an education and play baseball. Why not do that now, Aaron? Why not? That's another area I feel you have to go tackle if you're a college recruit and you're trying to play college baseball, because I tell you, it's getting more difficult as we step into this next iteration of the NCAA trying to make more money. That's what I call it.
Mm.
That's a little bit about college
So,
recruiting. You got any other thoughts about that?
well, yeah, you just mentioned something at the end there that kind of piqued my interest, and I haven't really rolled through it that deep, but you just said about the NCAA making more money. How does that translate, this 5 for 5, translate into the NCAA making more money?
Well, it's two things. One is that NCAA's got this huge, TV contracts.
Mm-hmm.
You got football, you got basketball, the big, I call it the big two. People call it the
Yeah.
big three baseball. I'm talking about the big two. All of a sudden, here's a guy who gets injured and he doesn't know he has maybe a pro career at his junior year in basketball or even at football. All of a sudden he goes, you know what? I got NIL money, you know, I think I'll stay here for another 2 years and just make some money, get my degree, and just move on in my life. Well, that contract and all that money, the teams are good now. All the teams are good now. They're putting every game on every network. You got Netflix, you've got Prime TV, you've got TBS, TNT, besides the ESPNs
Mm-hmm.
and all the other major networks. There's so much money. Every school now seems at the D1 level have some sort of TV contract
Mm-hmm.
or revenue contract. So by having these seniors stay there another year, Aaron, it just adds more fuel to the fire. That's more money for them,
Mm-hmm.
basically. I don't know if they're really thinking about the athlete, student athlete. Is there such thing as student athlete anymore? That would be, where's the student athlete anymore? Does that even exist at the D1 level? And I say that because, I've had several parents come in my office and go, is this really student athlete or is this just athlete? One is athlete. You're going to school to play sports.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like now. What happened to, talking about this guy graduated this way and he's got this degree. Do you ever hear that on an NCAA broadcast anymore?
Yeah.
You usually hear it all the time. Growing up in the 70s, in the 80s, you heard this guy, hey, he's got Rhodes Scholar, he's got this avenue, he's an intelligent guy. They used to even put out, Aaron, on TV. Here are the all academic players in the conference and all academic, all Americans during the major football broadcast. You know, you don't see that anymore. So are we really saying student athletes? Or are we just saying athletes
Mm.
from the NCAA? So that's a little tidbit.
Yeah.
Tidbit.
Okay.
Okay, Aaron, our next kind of like little topic we want to talk about is the categories of players now. It seems like. And we're going to talk about this in baseball now because I've talked to a lot of college coaches about this. You have these upper level guys, you got the area code guys, USA baseball guys, all these guys at the top 80 guys here, you know. And then you have, okay, then there used to be a tick below, just a tick below. What happened to that tick below athlete that was really good and could play at a major college program? There used to be a whole bunch of them scattered in all the programs. Now it's gone down. You maybe have one or two of those guys, then you have everybody else, the middle class. I call it the middle class athlete, right? And what happened to these guys? Has the NCAA affected these guys, or are these guys not there anymore? Has everything been watered down? Basically, what I comes down to it is everything watered down in the world of, I'm gonna use this word, travel baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Are there too many teams? Not enough competitive teams, which will lead me into the next subject we'll talk about in a second here. But where's that athlete anymore? Where has he gone and is he getting better? Is he at the junior college level now, trying to get where he needs to be in that D1 category? But for the high school athlete, we don't see it anymore. There used to be, you had this Wednesday, Friday elite guy on the mound, and you had about six or seven elite ball players behind him on defense. Where's that at the varsity level anymore?
Mm.
I don't see it consistently anymore. It used to be that way, but not anymore, Aaron. And I'm just, I think my main thing is like, where's this gone now? Where are we at with all this stuff? Because I don't know where that athlete is. You got any comments about that or any opinions?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, are those athletes maybe being discouraged by the process
Mm,
and deciding that it's not worth it? Because, again, those are your developmental athletes.
right.
And and it's something I saw in track and field a while back. And again, I'm not it may still be occurring, it may not be occurring, but you gotta there was kind of a point where you'd have a kid, maybe he was an 11 flat sprinter
Okay.
in high school, and senior year he's maybe 11 flat 10-9 or whatever, which is
Okay.
not going to get you a scholarship anywhere,
Right. Right.
but still has the aptitude, still has the talent, maybe just didn't get, maybe he's a late bloomer, maybe he didn't get
Okay.
the proper training, that he needed to, kind of break through a little bit better to be more of a recruitable athlete. But still, it's all there. And, a lot of those athletes kind of started to make the decision, because I'm not getting an offer and I'm not getting a scholarship, that I'm just going to be done with the sport. And so
Mm,
are those kids, a lot of those kids just said, okay, after high school, I'm done. You know, um, do I really want to work more at a junior college to try and continue to develop myself into that recruitable athlete, or am I just going to go to school? And so I think that may be what's happening in baseball now.
mm.
When I was coaching at Chabot College, for years we would get those kind of like, those those kids who were had the talent, had the aptitude, but didn't come from very good programs where they were coached well, developed well, needed that extra year or two. And we would have, 11 kids come in at 11-3, 11-4. And in 2 years, those kids leave at 10-5, 10-6, ten
Wow.
seven, and be able to move on to, other programs, because now they're running those the recruitable times. And I don't know if it's just a matter of if that infrastructure, like, junior college has been impacted because you've got the elite coming back, so there's not room for those kids, or those kids just kind of being they're in high school, they're looking at, the road that they got to hoe, and are being discouraged by that and just saying, well, hey, you know what, I'm not recruitable out of high school, so I won't be able to run college track, and walking away, not realizing it. A lot of it has to do with where they're at in their development, and the high school program that they're at.
Mm. Mm. That's
And
a really good point, man.
maybe
That's
that's happening in baseball. Again, maybe you've got a kid who just needs, get another year or two of development, and they're behind the curve, and time has run out on the high school clock, and either they don't want to extend it or don't know how to extend it, or the infrastructure is not in place for them to be able to extend it.
mm.
Because, again, this was, for me, it was 80s, but back in the day, all of us, I was like an 11 flat sprinter, 10-7, whatever. And yeah, I'd be wanted at a JC, but not necessarily at a D1. I was luckily able to, be a preferred walk on on a D1, and then earn my scholarship. But most of my teammates kind of went through the same path. We weren't world breakers, we weren't state finalists or anything like that, but we still had the ability, and we just needed, again, more time to develop and to get into the right environment that
Mm.
would develop us. And that's kind of where I saw the importance in California of state schools. They
Right,
were the ones who welcomed that type of athlete. So what happened is you've got these high school athletes transitioning to state schools, and all of these state schools are competitive because you're getting a similar type of athlete, but
right,
all of these athletes are growing at these state schools. And one thing I did notice is when they started cutting the funding at the state level for some of the athletic programs, that's when it started happening in track and field.
right, right. I like that. I like what you said. This makes a lot of sense to me, and I never really, thought about that, how it translated into to baseball. So, I think that's a great point, Aaron. I think that has happened in baseball. So glad that you gave some good tidbits about that. Next subject, Aaron, is the translation of practice, into the game. And my take on this is that I think athletes aren't competing hard in practice. Thus, they get in the game, they don't know how to compete. They think they can turn it on just because they went to practice. So the level of competition and practice or training I feel needs to be notched up to get the athletes now in today's game to compete at a high level. Because I think, hey, I'm showing up for practice. And that's basically, hey, I'm working hard because I show up rather than competing as hard as you can in practice. So when you get in the game, you're ready to go. That's what I see now. I don't see players really competing hard at practice anymore. So when they get in the game, they're asking their bodies and their minds to function at a high level. And
Mhm.
it just doesn't happen because the practice isn't of quality and it's not that competitive level competition. You said something to me the other day about a workout partner for an athlete. And you said to me, hey, that workout partner that is leading the guy you want me to, you want to work out with, he's got to be a tough guy. And the workout partner's got to drive and be competitive with each other. And I think you're absolutely right. I don't see it anymore. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think because kids are exposed to so much practice and instruction, they're kind of numb to it. So there's more of a check-in mentality, check the box mentality for a lot of kids. And I don't know if that's just again the environment we've created,
Right.
by accident as coaches, or if that's just the nature of kids now because of how they're responding to so much structured,
Right. Everything's
you
structured, right?
know,
Yeah.
structured training and coaching. My feeling is this because, again, as a trainer, I'm really looking for the kids to be learning. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and so sometimes I actually have to pull the competitive pedal, take my foot off the competitive pedal so that they can slow down enough to do things right.
Right.
Um, but there are times when I have to tell them, hey, look, the governor's off. You know
Uh-huh.
the movement. Let's go. Now I need to see intensity. I need to see intensity effort. And I don't know if they really know how to, again, like you said, make those changes. If they can't do it in training, how are they going to do it in the game? The other thing is, athletes spend very little time comparatively with me versus their teams. So to me, it would seem it's the onus on the team environment to be competitive. But is
I
it
like that.
competitive where they're afraid to make mistakes and so they're not really extending themselves? Are they worried about ridicule, social media? I don't know. But is there, to use a overused term, safe place for them to be competitive and 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 not worry about failing and not worry about any, fallout from that, whether it's, ridicule,
Right.
beratement from the coach, or, someone getting it on their phone and putting it out there. Is there that hesitation? Um, and also maybe it goes all the way back to their just early development. if kids aren't playing games, and I'm not talking about sports games,
Right.
how do you develop competitiveness? I mean, as a kid, in the summer, we'd be outside playing, and then also part of our day would be playing board games, Stratego, Monopoly, you
Yeah.
know, and
Right.
so there's different ways to have competitive outlet, and maybe those kids aren't having ways to be competitive outside of physical activity
Boy, you said,
because competitiveness is, that's a cerebral thing.
yeah, it is.
So I don't know.
That's good. I like what you said. You talk about these board games, and I think about the phone, and I think about, okay, they're playing these games on the phone, and then, oh yeah, I lost. Okay, I can restart the game.
Yeah,
Well, you can't restart the game in a board game. You're in the middle of the thing. It's like you either
right.
win or you either win or you lose.
Yeah. And there's not that real mano a mano. I guess you can play against somebody on a, obviously you can play against somebody on a, on a video game, you could versus and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not really, I think something's lost in the translation because there's not the physical proximity of the other
Right,
person. And
right.
so, like you said, even playing a video game, there's a safeness to it because, oh, let me reset. Let
Right,
me get a cheat code, especially if they're playing against the computer and not another human.
right,
So,
right, right, right.
um, I don't know, but I see it. Like I said, I see athletes who can't turn that switch on, can't turn that competitive switch on, even in a just a training atmosphere. So I can see how they're struggling out there on the
Yeah.
field.
Hey, do you think that because of social media today and the use of it and all these different avenues to use social media, do you think that plays in a major role in an athlete being embarrassed or competitive because things can be put on social media and I don't want to put myself out there as much for those athletes that don't have confidence? You
Oh,
know,
without a doubt. I mean,
yeah,
it would.
take on that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's there's I think there's a heightened sense of self-consciousness, in athletes now because of if that's the right word, because of
Right,
social media, because a camera at any point can be on you,
right,
you know. Um, but also, I think there's a low level of self-awareness, knowing who you are.
right.
And I kind of think about it, from my standpoint, if I was a kid nowadays, I was self-conscious because I was kind of shy, but I was self-aware of who I was, which I had a high confidence of. So
Okay.
competing, I didn't care. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And so maybe I'm not using the right words, but there was that kind of Jekyll and Hyde in me, you know,
Yeah, I
and
get that.
and so I think both can coexist, but I don't know if kids are. I think kids are tying their identity to what's outwardly being shown about them,
Right, right.
if that makes any sense.
It does make sense,
So,
Aaron. I mean, that Jekyll and Hyde thing you mentioned is a good point because, yeah, you may be shy, but you got into your event, you're running, and all of a sudden, like, who's that guy?
yeah,
Like, he's usually not like that,
yeah.
but you put him in this arena, then he's like that. I agree with you 100%. I think a lot of times, you don't see that switch get turned on for those athletes to compete when they get in that competitive level or into their arena of sport. I see the same personality off the field coming onto the field, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing in sport. There needs to be this competitive edge that you have when you step into your arena.
Hmm.
I'm seeing athletes now who don't have that competitive edge. Who they are off the field is translated who they are in the competitive arena. And I think that hurts their development of competition and hurts their ability to get where they need to be in the future because there is no Jekyll and Hyde
Hmm.
in the athlete anymore. You
Right.
see, it's just like, oh, Jekyll's always around.
Right. Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's a good point you made. I think it's a good point. Hey, here's another one, and I this goes back to our days back in the day. And are athletes resilient anymore? Are athletes resilient anymore, Aaron? I mean, where are we at with this? It's like, hey, you get shot down, I'm done. Bye. Easy way out. Are they resilient? Will they get back up off like Rocky? I call it the Rocky syndrome.
Yeah.
I start using this past year. Rocky syndrome. You get knocked down. Apollo just knocks you down, knocks you down. Now, are you going to get up and say, hit me again, hit me some more? You know, what do you think about that?
Well, again, you're talking to a Neanderthal when it comes to that kind of stuff, man. Um, it's kind of like we're in a society that diagnoses everything, and there's nothing wrong with a diagnosis, but sometimes it gives people an excuse or a crutch to maybe not be something that they can be. You
Right.
know, I can't do this because I've been diagnosed with that. I can't do this because of that. My doctor said, or my parents is this, or the coach that, and it's like, again, maybe it comes back to that self awareness of who you are and who you want to be, and I think people carry those labels, whether it's ADHD. I'm not saying none of this stuff isn't real. I'm just saying they kind of let some of these labels wear on them, and they don't become their full selves. They let that be part of who they are or control part of who they want to be, if that makes, any sense to you. Um, and so I think we have a lot of kids who kind of grow up like that and use those labels as excuses or crutches to not, excel.
Right.
And again, maybe that's some old school thinking. My one of my favorite comedians is Bill Burr, and he
Okay.
talks about you know the good old days where you know feelings. What are you talking about feelings? What you do with those feelings? You just press them down so that so you never think about them and forget about them. And so I guess I'm from that era where it's feelings. What are you talking about feelings? You press those things and you press those things out of your psyche and you move on. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
I like
he
that.
always talks about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
That's great. I like that.
and maybe the kids don't have that ability, and it doesn't have to be something that's done all the time, but there are times maybe where you've got to have that ability to tune all of those voices out and just forge ahead.
Right. Right. So true. So true. Hey, our last subject for today and our last little riff is hey, why are players being rushed to the big leagues or being rushed in their sports now? I see this a lot. I see this really happening in Major League Baseball more than I've ever seen before. I see players getting to the big leagues faster. I think the level of and it happens in a lot of ways. I see the ERA being higher, and people don't realize that the ERA has gone up in baseball. They talk about the batting average has gone down. They don't realize the ERA's gone up, and guys throw harder, which is the whole thing. But they're rushing these guys to the big leagues. It's like an assembly line. Oh, it's just like they're turning over guys faster and faster and faster now. I asked somebody, "Hey, give me the starting lineup for this team," and I go, "Can you name one player on their team, two players on their team?" I asked them, "Okay, give me the my." I told one of our players, "Give me the Miami Marlins starting lineup, or give me a player." Guy goes, I only know one player on their team. So is this turnover thing happening so fast, that, there's no identity behind the team? I could tell you, some of the teams because you see them on TV all the time. I know the Dodgers starting lineup because it's on the team, but they're always changing a couple guys here and there. I can tell the Giants because the Giants are obviously my team and I'm here in the Bay Area, but their lineup changes all the time. So the question is, why is Major League Baseball rushing players to stay in player development? What's your take on that, man? I think it's an interesting subject, man, and it's maybe a broader subject down the road that we talk about in its own true podcast. But you got any tidbits about that, man?
Well, I mean, when you first asked the question, the first thing that popped in my head, and I wasn't even thinking about it, was money. That was the word that popped in my head.
Right.
And is it again? Sports is entertainment.
Yes,
We
sir.
grew up where sports was something more. It was it said more about humanity and us and how
Right.
we interacted and all that stuff. But anyway, sports now is entertainment, and that's really what it comes down to me. I enjoy sports, I watch sports, but I take it for what it is. um,
Entertainment.
it's entertainment. And so I'm thinking, the cynic in me is thinking, okay, well, they're probably bringing these guys up because it's a way of getting butts in the seats.
Right.
It's a way to kind of manufacture some kind of splash so people come to the stadiums. Hey, our latest rookie, signed, is now coming in.
Right.
Because the other side of that is, has there been any studies, or have you noticed, because these guys are coming in sooner, are they even performing up to the task?
Yeah.
So even though these guys are quote unquote ready for the bigs, are they really doing anything? Are they
Impactful.
performing as well? Are they hitting as well as guys who came up, who maybe taken 4 or 5 years to
Hmm.
get there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Or
do.
are they coming up and then going right back down?
Right. Right.
So, that would be interesting to see if maybe if the talent is better, maybe that dictates why they're getting, that opportunity sooner. Or is it maybe just teams have the luxury to play around with talent, and maybe it's a different way to strategize different fits, like you said, for different lineups to in an attempt to find the right chemistry. Um, I don't know.
It's interesting, Aaron, and I think back in the day when I was playing, which is back in the day, um, you wouldn't see a 268 hitter or a 275 hitter get called to big leagues and say he's been hot and he's doing really well. It's like you had to earn your keep. You had to hit 300. You had to hit all these benchmarks. You had to show that you were a competent major league player. You had to know how to play the game. It seems now I don't see the same level of baseball IQ at that level as I see now. I mean, I see there's talent. Don't get me wrong, it's
Yeah.
talent, but can guys really play?
Well, then that begs a question. What's the criteria? The criteria has, maybe the criteria has changed.
Okay.
So because everything is so metric driven in baseball, maybe it's because, okay, this guy may not necessarily have, the major league IQ that we want, but he's got a spin rate of this and can throw this fast, and that's entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe this guy has a exit velocity of this, and even though he may not hit for for average, the the chance of him hitting something out of the park
Is entertaining.
is greater. That anticipation,
Right.
because I don't watch baseball that closely anymore, but I see lots of stats coming up now, and lots of graphics on the thing, and I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily listening to the announcers. A lot of times I'll just have it on mute. But are they now saying, "Hey, this is so and so. such and such, and this is whatever first year in the bigs. This kid has a exit velo of, you know,
Hmm.
are they saying, hey, this kid has an exit velo of 107, but they're not saying what his batting average was.
Well, I will say this is the most interesting thing I've seen analytically or statistically when they post a lineup. They usually
Hmm.
post a lineup and they give the guys average home runs
Hmm.
and RBIs and runs.
Right.
Now they're posting what's their OPS.
Mm.
Like you don't even know what the hitter is hitting. It's like
Mm.
OPS is this. So you have to assume, you have an education and what is OPS.
Right.
And you're just thinking, okay, he has a high OPS. Okay. And what does that mean? My whole thing is this. I've always said this. In order to be a productive major league ball player, you got to knock in runs and you got to score runs.
Hmm.
Period. So that's my take on this thing with that. But, rushing guys to big leagues, you're right. It's entertaining. So anyway, hey, that's the subjects we got covered today, Aaron. Um, again, fun to talk about this stuff, and we'll keep on chatting up. You and I we're back at it again, which is awesome. So excited that people listened in to us today. Thank you for tuning in. And Aaron, you got any final thoughts, my man?
No, just you know, try and engage, guys. Ask questions. That helps to feed the subjects that we're trying to bring to you guys. Yeah, we can talk about what we want to talk about, but if it doesn't resonate with you, we're kind of wasting our time too. So we can have these conversations in the gym. We don't have to take extra time out on a Zoom to do this.
Oh,
So
good.
again, don't be afraid. There's no, stupid questions. There's a lot of you guys out there who just don't know what's going on, and maybe have some questions. And you're not going to be alone. And so we want to kind of, the podcast is called Ask Aaron and EJ. So do some asking. So we'd love to give you the answers, or at least our opinions on what's going on. But no, other than that, another mixed bag today. Kind of like that. A couple of different subjects,
Yeah,
little tidbits here and there.
I love that.
But no,
With that said, hey, thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. Ask Aaron and ask EJ. This is Coach Eric Johnson, the brand.
and this is Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source. We'll see you.